Have you ever reacted to something, snapped at someone, shut down completely, felt a wave of shame over something small, and then thought, where did that even come from? That reaction felt bigger than the moment deserved, more intense, more automatic, like it bypassed your adult brain entirely and came from somewhere much older. It probably did. The patterns your brain locked in during childhood, the emotional responses, the beliefs about yourself, the strategies you develop to feel safe and loved, don't disappear when you grow up. They go underground. They become automatic. And they quietly run in the background of your adult life, influencing how you respond to stress, how you behave in relationships, how you see yourself, often without you realizing it at all. Today, we're going to look at the science of how early experiences shape the adult brain and, more importantly, what you can actually do about the patterns that are no longer serving you. Think of your childhood experiences as a blueprint, not a blueprint you chose, one that was drawn for you, based on your environment, your caregivers, and the things that happened to you before you had the cognitive tools to process them properly. That blueprint shapes how you expect relationships to work, whether you believe you're fundamentally lovable or fundamentally flawed, whether the world feels basically safe or basically threatening, whether your needs deserve to be expressed or hidden. And here's the uncomfortable part. You didn't need to have a dramatically difficult childhood for this to apply to you. It's not just about trauma in the clinical sense. It's about the ordinary, everyday messages, repeated thousands of times, that told your developing brain what to expect from the world and what kind of person you are in it. Being told your emotions were too much, being praised only for achievement, not for who you were, learning that conflict meant withdrawal of love, growing up in a home where vulnerability wasn't safe. None of these are catastrophes, but over time, quietly, they write the code. And then you spend your adult life running software you didn't know you installed. How early experience shapes the adult brain. Part 1. Attachment Theory. In the 1960s and 70s, British psychologist John Bowlby developed attachment theory, one of the most influential and well-replicated frameworks in all of psychology. The core idea is this: the way your primary caregivers responded to your emotional needs in early childhood shapes your fundamental expectations about relationships, specifically, whether other people will be reliably available and whether you are worthy of care. Researchers identified 4 main attachment styles that emerge from different early environments. Secure attachment, where caregivers are consistently warm and responsive, produces adults who generally feel comfortable with intimacy and can regulate their emotions well. Anxious attachment, from inconsistent caregiving, where love felt conditional or unpredictable, produces adults who tend to crave closeness but fear abandonment, often becoming hyper-vigilant to signs of rejection. Avoidant attachment, from caregivers who are emotionally distant or dismissive of needs, produces adults who learn to suppress emotional needs and rely entirely on themselves, often uncomfortable with intimacy or vulnerability. These aren't personality types you're born with. They're adaptive strategies your brain developed in response to your specific environment. They made sense then. The question is whether they still make sense now. Part 2. The brain in early development. Here's why early experience has such an outsized effect. The brain is more plastic, more changeable, in early childhood than at any other point in life. In the first few years, the brain is forming neural connections at a staggering rate. The experiences that repeat most frequently get wired in most deeply. It's essentially a process of the brain deciding, based on what keeps happening, what's the world like? What do I need to do to survive and be loved in it? Neuroscientist Bruce Perry describes it this way: the brain organizes itself around its most repeated experiences. Not its most dramatic ones, its most repeated ones. It's the everyday patterns, not just the big events, that do most of the shaping. And because this wiring happens before the prefrontal cortex, the rational, self-aware part of your brain is fully developed, most of it happens below conscious awareness. You didn't decide to believe these things about yourself. You just absorbed them. They became the water you swam in. Part 3. The inner child response. When you encounter a situation in adult life that echoes an early emotional experience, even subtly, your nervous system can respond as if you're back in that original situation. A critical comment from a boss that triggers the same shame spiral as a disappointed parent. A partner going quiet that activates the same panic as a caregiver withdrawing love. A conflict that sends you into the same freeze response you learned as a child when the environment felt unsafe. Psychologists call these emotional flashbacks, not necessarily visual memories, but emotional states that get triggered in the present and belong to the past. They feel completely real and completely about the current situation. But the intensity, the automaticity, the sense of overwhelm, that's old. The technical term is neuroception, your nervous system scanning for threat patterns that match old experiences, often faster than conscious thought. Your body responds before your brain has time to catch up, and so you find yourself, as a fully grown adult, running a 5-year-old's coping strategy in a 30-year-old's body, wondering why you react the way you do, not realizing you're not fully in the present. Here's the reframe, and it's an important one. Understanding how your childhood shaped you is not about blame. It's not about becoming a passive victim of your past or using it as an excuse for every difficult pattern in your life. It's about access. When you can see the pattern, when you can recognize, this response I'm having right now is old. It belongs to a younger version of me. It made sense then, but may not apply now. You create a gap, a tiny space between the trigger and the response. And in that gap, something becomes possible that wasn't before. Choice. You can't change what happened. You can't rewrite the blueprint from scratch. But you can become aware of it. And with awareness, you can begin to respond differently. Not automatically, not from the old strategy, but from who you actually are now. The patterns aren't permanent. The brain that wired them in is the same brain that can rewire them. Slowly, with repetition, with support, but genuinely. You were shaped by your past. You are not imprisoned by it. 3 places to start. Not to fix everything overnight, but to begin seeing the patterns and creating a little more choice. First, notice your disproportionate reactions. The clearest signal that an old pattern is running is when your emotional response feels bigger than the situation seems to warrant. Not every strong feeling is old, but when the intensity surprises even you, when you find yourself thinking, "Why am I so upset about this?" That's worth paying attention to. Get curious, not critical. Ask, when have I felt this before? What does this remind me of? You're not trying to psychoanalyze yourself, just to notice. Second, learn your attachment style. There are free, well-validated attachment style quizzes online. Search attachment style test and take one from a psychology-based source. Understanding whether you tend toward anxious, avoidant, or secure patterns in relationships is genuinely illuminating. Not to put yourself in a box, but to understand the water you've been swimming in. Patterns you can name are patterns you can begin to work with. Third, create the pause. When you feel a strong emotional reaction, especially in relationships or under pressure, practice pausing before responding. Even 10 seconds. Take a breath. Ask yourself, am I responding to what's happening now or to something older? You won't always get it right, but practicing the pause again and again is how you gradually create space between the trigger and the automatic response. That space is where your adult self gets to show up instead of your 5-year-old self. And if these patterns feel deep and entrenched, if they're significantly affecting your relationships or your well-being, talking to a therapist who works with attachment or early experience is genuinely worth it. This is the one area where professional support makes a real difference. You are more than your childhood. You are more than the strategies you developed to survive it. But you can't move past what you can't see. And now, you can see a little more. That's where change actually starts. Not with a dramatic decision or a single breakthrough moment, with a slightly clearer view of the patterns. And the willingness to do something different, one moment at a time. Next video, the final one in this first series, we're looking at the quiet mind. Why stillness feels so uncomfortable. What your brain does when you stop filling every moment with noise. And why learning to sit with yourself might be the most important skill you can build. It's a good one to end on. See you there.